All right, welcome H Radio 223 part-timers to your next lesson, lesson 31, right, of 84. And it is Practical Programming and Making Content, part 15 of 15, chapter 14, page 167 to 178, call screening, right? So what is this chapter or this particular lesson about, should I say? It is us learning how to pre-screen a caller. So in other words, a caller that either perhaps maybe sends us a message like on a WhatsApp or directly to our SMS lines. And we want to now put them to air. So we will go and give them a call, have a chat to them off the air, right? And kind of prepare them and also prepare ourselves to see whether or not they are the correct fit for what it is that they can contribute. We want to always put the best caller or close to the best caller on the show to contribute to the conversation. And that someone that has the right energy, the right information, the right personality as well. Sometimes we do have a lot of callers that just are not they're not radio ready. In other words, they don't have the right demeanor. Maybe they don't speak properly. So maybe they have. It's not about speech impediments. It's more about language, I think. So someone that might not be proficient in whatever your first language is, your priority language is, that the station broadcasts in, or might not really have the correct diction, might find it difficult to kind of express themselves. So they might have really great contributions that we could add as notes, right? So whoever is John said this, or Mataba said this, whatever it may be, and then add that to kind of the notes that we'll add to when to other I'm saying in additional notes that will add to communication between, let's say, the production studio and the on-air studio while that presenter is on air. Anyway, so it is a process that you'll get used to quite quickly. The thing is that is quite daunting for a new presenter, new broadcaster, new producer, whatever it may be, right? Is the equipment, right? So I would like to be able to show you how the equipment works, which is something that we can actually do in studio on campus, and we can do that when I see you once again face to face. Just to obviously note, this week, yeah. So we'll move into the studio just for a bit of a squiz, all right? Next week I'll take you there for about half an hour, 40 minutes. So and show you just a little bit around the studio, and then we'll get some more, then get some more practice on air. But I'll show you how our phone lines actually work, and you'll see how call screening can actually goes from start to finish, even in our little studios that are fully functional and obviously have everything that you need there. So let us talk. Oh, right. Well, sorry, I'm going to quickly share a particular video. Where did I put it down? Oh yeah, okay. To start us off on the conversation. Right, here we go.
Do you want to take live callers on your radio show? If so, this video is going to explain how to do it and everything that you need to set it up. So the great thing about inviting someone onto your show is that they can usually give you something really interesting that you could never have planned. So for example, I've had a few people call up on my show at MCR Live, and they've just told some interesting stories that I would never have been able to tell had they not got in touch. So for this video, we are going to be using the Behringer Pro Mixer DX2000 USB. It's really easy to use and has up to 7 channels. So each microphone will have its own channel, but then you may have external devices plugged in as well, like a turntable or a CD player. Essentially, everything that comes through the mixer gets combined all together and then sent to your computer. Everybody's setup is unique, so your mixer or microphone might be slightly different, but we have got another video where we have used a smaller Behringer Xenex 802 mixer, so check the description below to see how we got along with that. So now all you need to do is connect your microphone to the mixer. So for this, we are using the Neumann TLM103 microphone with a standard XLR cable. So now you need to connect your phone to another channel on the mixer. All you need to do is put your RCA phono audio cable straight into your headphone jack. So now you need to ensure all the channels in your mixer are set correctly. So with the DX2000 USB, the first two channels are for microphones and the rest of them are for your phone line, turntables and audio processors. When we're broadcasting, we can monitor all of the audio through the master channel by just using a jack adapter and a pair of headphones. We will be able to hear ourselves through the microphone, our caller on the phone, and anything else connected to the DX2000 USB mixer. During the call itself, the person on the end of the phone will hear us as they would a normal phone call, and the listeners will hear us as if we are speaking down the microphone. All of the audio, including the microphone and our caller, will go through an encoder called BUTT, which stands for Broadcast Using This Tool. It's a way of sending our entire show to radio.co. Just make sure in the settings you select the audio device as the mixer. In the radio.co dashboard, make sure you record the broadcast as a scheduled event. That way we can save this conversation with our live caller for later use. Now let's give it a try. I'm now going to call my colleague just to show you how easy and simple this is. Hi Leela.
Hi, okay.
So I am calling you from radio.co because we are demonstrating to our subscribers how easy it is to make a live caller on a radio show. You are live. How does it feel?
I'm live now.
Yeah. Does it sound like a normal phone call to you?
Yeah, it does.
It all works perfectly fine. Well, thank you very much, Leela. We'll
It's
see you later.
Yeah, see you later.
Bye. So what do you think of the setup? Let us know in the comments and let us know what mixer you are using as well. Remember, if you have any questions about any of the equipment or anything that we have mentioned in this video, do not hesitate to get in touch with the radio.co expert at studio@radio.co.
Okay, right. So, as you know, I just stop that. I've been using a lot of radio.co stuff. Because it's quite clean and it's quite concise. And again, she explained quite nicely as well. Specifically, also looking at that, so that looked like no, that was I mean, it was obviously a real radio studio. Radio.co, particularly as far as I understand, works with online radio, right? But they have so many different little outlets as well. I'm saying so substations and sub brands that quite possibly it could be include some community radio there as well. It doesn't matter. The thing is that the setup that you saw there is exactly well. It's very very similar to how it would work with kind of like I say a makeshift station, so more the smaller stations as well. But the semantics of plugging in, plugging out the wiring, etc., cables, and how that obviously works through the desk, right? On different channels and allocations, etc., is the same across all stations, right? But you saw the process. Obviously, like she gave a call to somebody. It's kind of that easy, right? You had the lady there being kind of surprised. Obviously, she's a co-worker. And well, I mean that's just a little bit of an intro there. So let us talk about on air and call screening for producing your show. Right. So a great caller does actually make or break your show, right? As you would also like a good link or a good interview or a good piece or whatever it may be, right? So you can always feel the listeners actually tuning out the longer the listener is on and they're not saying anything that's cool, that's interesting. And that is also your fault as well, because once again, that's when you have the pre-screening process where you'll take them off air before you go on air. Really chat to them, really get to if they only have one sentence or one comment to actually add, and it's a valid comment and it's a cool comment and again a valuable, then we can put that on air, but mustn't go on and ask them how their mom is and how they're doing and how their day is and all that type of stuff, right? Let me not jump ahead. Screening always involves being able to manage people, right? Again, so you as a personality need to know that you are dealing with endless amount of very kind of you don't know when I say volatile personalities, we don't know what the people are going to be like when they do call into the station or they do want to be on air, right? So you have to be a good communicator, but also a really good people's person. and you got to be inviting and professional at the end of the day too. So the job takes both art and it does take skill, as we always say. That's why it's called a craft, right? According to Dennis Clark, producer for the nationally syndicated Ryan Seacrest show, my ex-boss, think of the phone as a second or third microphone. It doesn't matter that it's located elsewhere. Treat it as another guest's mic. So, how do you screen out bad or boring callers while attracting great ones? That's a isn't that a question? You can't necessarily the when I say you can't unless literally doing it yourself, so actually going through the callers that call live. So let's say you do the throw out, you throw out the number, whatever it is, and then you see the phone line start obviously lighting up, right? You can't tell by that alone, but face value, who's going to be a great caller, who's not, right? Sometimes people just always call because they want to know something, like they need some information. They're randomly just calling at that particular time. When you're taking other callers, they want to ask for a song, random things, and you say, listen, I'm just busy with politely, right, and professionally listen, I'm just busy with a call out, right? And we take some other callers. Can you call a bit later or send us a WhatsApp or whatever it may be and give them, be polite and inviting so that they feel that they were welcomed, right? But ideally, ideally, when we're just dealing with a phone line, we don't really know, and we got to work quickly as a producer or even the presenter that is dealing with their own telephone lines. We've got to work quickly, right? Because we want to put on people in the next upcoming link, which is about, let's say, 12 minutes from when the call out is actually happening, right? Or it's been thrown out, right? So we will only the danger, obviously, or the danger, but also the plus. I suppose the disadvantage and advantage of WhatsApp is when you do play a voice note, you can tell the demeanor. You can already see whether this person has something to contribute or something even more to contribute, or perhaps maybe only what they said in the voice note is worth playing on air, and there's no interaction that needs to occur on the show. So we have to do that quality control. I say not on the go, but on the go, right? Okay. So getting to speak on a talk show is not a given, right? It's actually a privilege, right? So you don't just get to talk on anything. I'm saying in any caller. I'm saying call out phone issues that we are constructing. We are choosy, okay? And obviously we can't acknowledge everyone's voice notes, send in text that they send in. We can acknowledge them for sending in their responses. Thank you so much. We got so many responses, and we obviously love reading them or love listening to them so that they are encouraged to continuously keep sending stuff and interacting with us. They also know that the logic and the semantics of we can't put 100 callers on air and we might not get to the 100th WhatsApp that comes through or the 100th caller that is calling, right? So they know it's practicality that we can't actually do that. They don't get offended, but there are some ways, like I say, by not recognizing them and not recognizing that they are what's what I'm actually looking for, acknowledging that that's a better one, right? So acknowledging that they have made the effort to be part of your show, that's going to put them off, right? So, okay, in order to qualify, you must have something to say. Obviously, not everyone who demands to be on air is going to be on air, nor should they, right? So use the callers to show advantage to the show's advantage to be able to elevate that train of thought. Again, like you heard that lady say, callers will always be that secret sauce to what makes your show really great because you have one perspective, one opinion, maybe shared opinion that you have cultivated through obviously learning and knowledge and being open, whatever it is, being woke, quote unquote, right? But the thing is that everyone else will always have something new and fresh. That's why we speak to other people. That's why we allow and open ourselves in general as people to engage in communities and to have open conversation, right? So we know that the listener is definitely it's a value added element to our show, but we also need to have them in there. Never put a bad caller on air. Rather, if they have something good to say but can't say it well, rather just reiterate what they had to say, right? So a reparaphrase. Okay, presenters may panic for when they see that they have very few or no callers waiting to go on air. And the red alarm, right, for that is that the content is 10 to 1 not working. So you just need to move on, right? Move on. Do not go out and say we're still you can throw out, let's say you're very stuck, and again, it's a quality control thing. Let's say you really are stuck on now doing this piece of content, right? You're a believer, right? You really, really like you got full buy-in, and you go ahead, you go on air again and say we're still taking callers, or if we can start telling that you just got no callers, right? It's certain words, and also the your you can always hear like a presenter's confidence kind of um oh man, like kind of shy away because they know no one's calling, whatever it is, and they feel that kind of embarrassment, that little bit of like that redness on the cheeks, and you should not do that because you sound kind of desperate as well. But also, the biggest explanation for it is that the listeners were not interested as it is when you first did the call out, and they're not interested when you're going to recap what you are busy doing in terms of the thread. And ideally, that's why I said to you, you just need to move on. They're not going to care because they didn't care in the first place, right? But if you do decide to go back on air and you do a call to action, just make sure that you're not giving away those telltale signs that there is no one that has responded to you yet. We do have to put things into perspective in the sense that we have a very, very small percentage of people that are considered active listeners. So active listeners are the ones that will enter your competitions, will send a text, will send voice notes, and will obviously call the station, right? Because it's within our own demeanors, right? So, for example, I am not an active listener, never have really been. I've phoned into a station 3 times, I think in my life, to win something, and I did win something just to kind of brag there, because I knew. But I want to say that because I knew that I had a very big chance of actually winning something, and I never called again to interact. I never sent a message. I never felt compelled to, not because there wasn't great radio happening, but because I'm not that type of listener, right? So other listeners, which have kind of like, I suppose they just they've either tried it before, enjoyed it, and continuously feel that they get something from obviously being a part of that conversation. It's different personalities, different strokes, but different folks, and definitely very, very, very small amount of these active listeners, right? That could become also regular listeners. I'm saying regularly interactive listeners. The number of blinking lights is the false indicator of how well the show is going. And I'll tell you why. Because the blinking lights, there's only about 6 of them maximum at any one studio. 6 people that are calling doesn't mean that the content piece is going well, but at least you have full phone lines, right? So as one drops because you're not answering, oops, there we go. As one drops because you're not answering because you're busy with somebody else, right? And another, like it lights up again. That for me is a sign of a good call out, right? And they'll stop calling once they hear other people on air. Particularly also with a competition, it's going to be super busy. You're going to get a lot of obviously text. You're going to get a lot of people calling in because they want to win money or they want to win an experience or whatever it may be, right? But once the prize is given away, you'll see obviously everyone will stop calling and the phone lines will go quote unquote quiet, right? So if a presenter gets nervous by not seeing, again, cover the call lights so that you can't see, right, who is waiting, etc. Right, because again, your attention, your demeanor, and your execution are going to be telltale signs that now you're becoming self-conscious of am I doing something right? And again, questionable. Every single point that we're moving in with elements and segments here on this in this subject needs to be obviously questioned further, right? Okay, sometimes the presenter can be compelling. Calls aren't really actually needed. You don't always have to do a call out. You can do standalone features. You can do well bodied. Again, as we said before, interviews, something that we are going to be looking once again in the next lesson. Just kind of recapping what we came up with across that snap exercise. But also, again, we don't always have to have people's input, right? because of the way that we constructed that link, and we might be adding value through different segments, sound bites, etc. Right? That we do, put on top of this particular, like I say, base content piece. Screening is a way to give power to a show by filtering out, obviously, the elements that can hold it back and make it very boring, right? So again, these long introductions and knowing who this person studied, if it's something that we can say on air and sum it up quite nicely to intro that particular listener, rather let us do it because they don't have I said the skill set of brevity, right? So avoid ruining, should I say, the fun for the listener and for the host by telling them in advance what they'll hear. Just give them hints, so little teasers. So let's say if you have obviously lined up a caller and they're coming up in the next 5 minutes, oof, yeah, you can also tease to that caller, right? As you can tease to any other element in the show. Keep a bit of the magic of the show whenever you are doing any bit of it, and work with and encourage presenters not to reveal what is happening behind the scenes. Please don't. It's none of the listener's business, um, and hardly ever is a reason to provide for the reasoning of context, right? So for the ultimate goal of context, it's really not necessary to tell them what is happening behind the scenes. Okay, so you always know one like a good caller, well, you always know one when you hear them. They've got that, like I say, big personality. They love that this natural engagement. A real, like I say, a real great communicator. Have great things to say. Very natural as well. Okay, and also best of all, they know how to say things and to the point. I'm saying to the point. So successful talk shows may reject as many as 50% of the callers that come in easily, more so even than 50%. But okay, talk shows will give a large variety of segments, and those segments can go for up to, let's say, I don't know, sometimes 4, sometimes 7 minutes long, of just taking callers, right? So we do take a lot of callers on talk radio, as you know, but a good caller is relevant, interesting, funny, or poignant, right? So to the point, right? Um, and obviously making good points, should I say. This is a person who adds to the show and makes it better. Remember, normal people don't call talk shows or shows in general. Normal people, as I said, the people that do actively call have a very particular type of personality. They see the process as easy, where a lot of us see it as hard work. I'm going to be calling. I'm going to get frustrated when they don't pick up. I'm going to send. This is the attitude. We'll send something in. It's not going to be obviously announced, mentioned or played out on air. So we just say, "Ah, it's fine. Let someone else obviously do it. No hard feelings, right? Sometimes so-called normal people aren't all that interesting, right? Okay. And maybe the people with bigger personalities, with quote unquote less tact across boundaries, right? Or the insinuation of boundaries, or the perception of boundaries, are possibly maybe the people that you actually do want to talk to, right? There's no definites in radio. Well, predominantly there's no definites in radio. We always say that this is to a certain extent, right? True. So often it's the weird ones with the strange experiences and visions and stories to tell, who are going to create those magic moments again, because you can bounce off them. They're going to bounce off you. They're going to be very open to, and it's not going to be an abnormal or an alien experience, right? A foreign experience to them. Right, so here's a few tips. So if you're bored screening the caller, how interesting will your audience find him or her? If you are discussing a human experience, it often works better to put on callers who lived through the experience and have a story to tell, rather than an academic or expert who is removed from the experience. So if we're going to break that down just a little bit, so, and I know that that you understand and agree with that, but if we want to talk about someone that's lost their job, or want to talk about job losses, right? We want to be able to talk to callers who have lost their jobs, can't find work, just found work or just lost their jobs, or and went through a resignation process or a termination process, as opposed to maybe someone that works in HR immediately. For greater context and a little bit of perspective, as I said, a little bit of value to the entire call out, we would probably have someone from HR if there's a direct conflict that doesn't actually arouse any need for calling out the station as being interfering. We could possibly have a company and an ex-employee on the line, right, to see what they have to say to one another if they haven't resolved some kind of conflict, right? Um, just give me a second here. A second. All right, let's continue just here. Sorry, I just had to take a very important call. Excuse a little pause there. Okay, so what else makes a good caller? So this is how you telltale signs, a few tips if you board screening the call. Again, how interesting will that audience find that particular caller interesting? You can't draw blood from a fossil, no matter how much Jurassic Park you believe in, right? So if they're not a great caller, don't put them on air. Just to reiterate, if you are discussing a human experience, once again, that's where I left off. Excuse me for the recap there. So we're talking about obviously like just getting that correct person as opposed to someone who might have a perspective around it, no actual experience doing it, right? I want to get to the meat of the matter, right? The core, and really get those experiences real and authentic. Avoid multi-part questions or a long rambling preamble. So introduction. We do want the introduction. We do want, again, that's why we pre-screen the caller so that we can sum up what they have taken maybe a minute to say. We can say it maybe in 15 seconds or 10 seconds, right? So to kind of intro them to get to the good bits and then ask them a question, like kind of like pick up where they said something, pick up from where they said something interesting. Will be good on air, right? Before you decide to put a call on air, make sure that the point they wish to get across is concise, it's very clear, and it's obviously focused. So they get in, we interact, and they get out, right? And don't just say don't, man, with a caller specifically, right? You mustn't to every caller say bye, 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 have a good day, bye, have a good day. They might take it a little bit offensively. They are kind of sensitive, but you need to move from one caller to another, from one caller, take the line off from saying to you, switch the channel off and move to closing that particular link, right? Moving it to your next element like music or imaging. So if you are targeting a young audience, then it makes sense to avoid older people. Agree, right? Sounding callers. However, those who are under 18 must be extremely articulate to be good. So that's a big assumption, obviously, that people under 16 can't actually or 18 can't actually talk properly. But that goes again for everyone. So let's go through some pointers. Right, for callers on air, Clark suggests the following system: name and place. First, identify the caller and find out where they're calling from. Think locally. So, hi, what's your name? My name is Chris. Where are you calling from? I'm in Montana Park, right? So sometimes a presenter will go all the way from Montana Park, or all the way from Germiston, or all the way from Shishangube. We have Chris on the line. Chris, um, you and your sister are best friends, and then we'll go from there, right? So suburb city, etc. The point, because most callers are not trained to be broadcasters, they may be repetitive or dilute their initial points. The best way to go with the first point they'd like to make is go to that first point and make it, right? So second and third points are usually weaker and might dilute the caller's initial point, right? So get the best part of what they have to offer for you or to you or for the listener for the show, and then rather have him say that and go to another listener, right, or another voice note or whatever it is that adds another, like I say, another level of value, right? So closing the call is something of an audio hug, not a thank you for calling, as I just said there. We are tempted to because we're polite people, right? Ideally, with what we do with an interview is we probably would thank them. Thanks for the time. Thanks for spending this past hour with us. Thanks for coming in. We'll do that, yes, sure. And then as a good blackout for that particular piece, and then move on, right? But not with a caller. But it should end in a positive or warm close out. You can fade out the call and then acknowledge the caller afterwards as well. Like, thanks so much for calling. If they 10 to 1, they probably will hang up on you. But those that are still waiting because they're waiting for direction, do you understand? You can just play a song, go to them, and be like, listen, thank you so much for the call. Listen, you have a good day, and thanks for listening to the show, right? So the purpose is to let other callers know what this is, or know that this is a safe place to call, welcoming. I want you to give me a call. I like chatting to you, that type of thing, right? So, okay, what makes for a good caller? Many stations want to air callers to sound most like the demographic of that particular group. So if you have a young let's say a young black audience, why are you putting a white person on air? It doesn't make any sense, right? There might be a call, there might be a listener, so you'll have like a random Caucasian. People think again that saying black or white are swear words, right? Okay. That might listen, for example, because they actually might know vernacular, some kind of type of vernacular, might be liking a Lesedi or whatever it is, but you're not going to put them on. It doesn't make any sense, no offense, right? We want to reflect the demographic of that particular group. Again, also in age, thought, mindset specifically. And some people you won't even know because you're not going to ask, oh, what is your age? What is your age? You'll be able to tell by their demeanor, right? But some people also will trick you. I mean, some people sound young as well, and they've got the young perspective. So why not just put them on if they fit the mold for what you're trying to say? And again, that kind of like mission, vision, feel, ethos of that particular show and station. Then why not just put them on? But ideally, that composite listener is who you should be reflecting in everything that you do on radio, including who you put on air. Train your callers. Avoid greeting cards. Thank you for taking my call. We love your show, right? Okay. So in other words, they don't have to say that on air, right? You don't have to so you're the one that's going to prompt them. If they feel prompted to say thank you, we love your show. We don't mind, man. Say if you like the show, you're going to say thank you so much, man. That's great. You can't control everything, especially when they do go on air and they start mouthing off, right? Anyway, how are you doing today? Please avoid that. The host has to be fine. Otherwise, why are they on air? The caller might not be fine, and we might want to mention it only within the context and relevance to what it is that we are saying, nothing else, right? These are not interesting to other listeners. Just get to why they are on air. Don't be afraid to say, get to the point, right? Because they might be waffling and be like, look, I've just got to draw you back here just for a second because you're talking about an orange when I'm talking about a shoe. So let's talk about the shoes again. Give the caller your rules. No reading or prepared statements or articles unless it is a press statement or a junket or whatever it is from government sector or business or whatever it may be. There's kind of legal implications. It's different. But you'll need to ask your question or make your comments without a long preamble, right? So, right, the host will hang up on you. That's the thing, right? We have to get to other callers. The moment I switch to another caller, is not that the system won't hang up on you. 10 to 1, that particular caller again is going to be like, okay, uh, I'm just hearing, at this point the presenter talk to another person because they'll be off air and pre-faded, whatever it is. Not pre-faded, but they'll be off air and they'll be able to hear what's going on air. And I'll just close the phone. Right. Some we can't say bye to everyone as well. We've got other things to also do. So we've already closed that piece of conversation, and the caller doesn't feel that that's kind of again a foreign thing to do. It's not rude or whatever. whereas obviously just hanging up on someone in real life is considered very, very disrespectful, right? Anyway, but we'll abruptly disconnect the line in most situations as well. But thank them before they go on air. That's really important. So just to kind of warn them before, just again, thank you for being on air. And once we speak, I'm just going to hang up the line. Okay, and they'll be like, cool, that's great. Well, this may seem impolite. It's how it works, right? The pep up. So being before putting your call on air, check back to make sure. Please, like, let's say you've got 2 or 3 or 2.5 minutes to go before going to going to air with that particular listener, right? They might, let's say you have made a mistake, for example, and you haven't switched them, you haven't switched the pre-fader off, whatever it is, they can't hear the music, they're going to hear silence, and they're going to be like, well, maybe this person, I don't know, dropped the line, or there's some kind of problem, they don't really understand the technical semantics, right? Or maybe their line got cut off, or if they're using a WhatsApp number or whatever it is, we obviously know that there's a lot of problems that do come from that potentially as well. So just 30 seconds before you go on air, 30 seconds, right? Just check that they are there. Okay, cool, great. I'm going to chat to you in 20. Okay, great. And then they're all ready. Just make sure that you take all your check boxes off, right? Listen to the show. So stay in communication with the host throughout the program, although you may be busy screening. So, from a producer perspective that does do call screening, please try to listen to the show and follow the threads of the program. Don't sit in your studio and your booth in silence, right? Okay, there are many nice ways to say no. A screener needs a backbone. So that doesn't mean you have to be rude, but you can just be firm and be like, thank you for your comments. We could possibly call you back. If they are persistent, you'll say to them, listen, I do have other callers to get to. Please just mail me on to kind of give them the option if they do want to follow through, if there is something that they are again pedantic about and they're not quite getting it, and they're wasting your time because you don't have a lot of time to screen callers, just give them a call to action, like where to go, a prompt, and then say, okay, great, we'll chat there. All right, something to just appease them. Have a sample script for screening callers. Other polite rejections could be being tough but professional. Should a rejected caller become angry or try to engage you in an argument, don't upset or rattle them. Don't have that argument and do not engage them, because the thing is that you don't know the control of your own temperament, right? You could be having a bad day, man, or you could be having a mildly intolerant day. It doesn't matter. Like, you could snap out and represent the station in a bad way, right? Do not let the haters get you down. If there is a time, hear the caller out, or if there is time, hear the caller out, and then hang up. Avoid speaker phones or bad cell lines, right? Avoid callers with heavy accent who can't easily be understood, right? It's just radio, baby. I mean, this is radio, baby. So don't, if you don't want a producer, right, to anger your audience. Your audience is really 99% of your listeners who will never, ever phone. Okay. Kind of like justifying why you might actually just be okay to be a little bit more short, right? Okay, with particular callers, because you do have a job to do at the end of the day. And I get it. People, you can't make everyone happy. All right, a rule about regulars. This is very important, right? If a person is on too much, so, and also you recognize them. I mean, you actually acknowledge, oh, it's you, Tracy, again, or Tracy, oh, you called yesterday, and it's a Tracy's put on air again, but maybe later on in the week people will be like, oh, like, you, why is Tracy on again? I mean, if she's not great or whatever it is, like, why you keep taking on Tracy? But also, Tracy is of a certain personality, right? Which is sometimes we'll mark them off with a little bit of a red, like a little bit of a red triangle. It's got a little question, like a exclamation mark. And they actually have been blocked, or they've been marked off a red flag as somebody that calls consistently and incessantly to the station, to always want to be part of whatever is going out on air. It's good to have a fan base, true, but the thing is that what is perceived on the outside becomes very annoying, becomes favoritism, nepotism, whatever it is. And it's not a family thing, but anyway, but you understand, right? and it puts other listeners off. They'll be like, oh, if you're going to continuously take this person, they're not all that in a bag of chips, right? Then why are you putting them on? Anyway, your callers are your active listeners. They are loyal, listening regularly, and are not too shy to call. But this we have to say no. Okay. Normally the red flags are put on for competitions, obviously, because this person has won before, has seen before. Yes, we do have a 3 month rule as far as I still as far as I know, still with all the stations, they have a 3 month rule. If you've won, you can't enter for 3 months again. You know that whole competition. The again the different competition policies, procedures, etc. Right? But and the system will automatically block you or again red alert you, right? Because we will put a note on that. But again, it's also applied to this again this incessant calling, right? All right. What makes you a good caller? Sequencing calls to best determine the order of your calls, keep track of the show topic and where you are currently in that conversation. So once again, the correct caller can carry the conversation a little bit further. Conflict makes for interesting dialogue. So if your host enjoys it and it's appropriate for the program, move calls that don't agree with the host to the front of the line. Don't ever put, let's say you got three callers, all three have to be good, right? Don't put the best one first and then suddenly it's going to kind of like dip. It's going to be like, whoops, when you go to your second and third caller, that are okay, right? You could maybe do it the other way around. Ideally, what you would do is put three great callers are in different, obviously in their own capacity as to why they are so great, one after the other. But also, you are busy telling a story. You're building climax. You're building you're playing with people's emotions, right? So you would know I'm going to put this person on last because they got the most outrageous story, or they got the biggest opinion, or they're the biggest personality. So we would like to close off quite strong. If the show has guests representing several points of view, then alternate the caller's point of view with the guest's point of view so that you get this nice flow, this nice up and down, all around approach. And again, information, conversation, knowledge that you're passing out there for greater purpose to your listener, right? The first call on the show should be the best available caller. The first call often sets the tempo for the rest of the show. Now you're going to tell me, but now how do we know this is going to be the best caller? You don't, right? At that particular point, at any one particular point, take the best caller that you do have and go with that because at any one point you are also in a narrative for the temperament and obviously the quality of your own show. So come out of each break with strongest, most energetic and passionate callers that you do actually have waiting. Interviewed him, put yourself on hold. These are these are very clear cop-outs as well for you as saying as a producer. Be careful of these and many, many, many more, right? So this is as a kind of like, oh, she's been waiting for 48 minutes. Why has she been waiting for 48 minutes? Why have you told her or let her wait for 48 minutes, right? Put yourself on hold. No, dude. Like you as the producer, please just take them off the pre-fader and then let them and explain to them how the whole process actually works, right? And this I do. Oh, this can happen. They freeze up. The callers freeze up on air. The guests freeze up on air. It does happen. So cut yourself a break when that is it's a legitimate excuse. But most of this isn't. I mean, we don't listen to this. We say no. It's not a good enough excuse, right? With messaging and emailing, presenters like to use interactive media, but the rule for including emails and instant messages is the content relevant? During the business day, some people can't use their phones and will use email to maybe get it's normally a commentary around what they feel about the show or the station or what you have said or maybe they want more information about something, so they're going to contact you directly by a more professional approach, right? Okay. Uh, Not normally, we won't get that as responses like actual, like what is your current or active response to a currently running content piece, but uh, through emails, be very uh, cautious about how it is that you're going to use them. Should you use them in any context, right? On your show. The ones I gave you, the situations I gave you are probably 99% of times that you're going to receive an email from a listener. Reading messages should be something that is you would pick. Let's say you can't obviously get, like I said, you can't get to every single listener. I understand that, right? But you want, let's say, close with some additional really great contributions from certain texts that were sent through by John, Jill, and Jack, whatever it is, right? And oh, you would like even, and that's a good example to say, oh, John, Jill, and Jack said the same exact thing, and it is important. It was about how to take breaks during an 8 hour or 10 hour day, right? Um, and taking a break is basically working at your desk with food, right? I don't know. Like it's a good way to also couple them all together. So many different suggestions, yeah, and so many different options, not suggestions, right? Activating text messages. So if you do use text messages from listeners on air, try reading them with a bit of drama, right? Okay, so making it your own. Go to our website for more information. Obviously, as a producer, get them to next call to action goes to go follow us, go do this, whatever it may be. And if you don't do that kind of like housekeeping, it's you have no investment in your product, right? And you're also not doing your job where you're currently being paid at that moment to do your job. Let's take a look at Geller's Media International's tips for talk show producers and screeners. All right. So Geller will say to us, one, let's go. All right. It's a recall on some of what we have done, but let's go bit by bit. Focus on your audience, not the 1% of the listeners who call in. Make sure that your host has material to talk about if there are no calls. Don't let all your lines jam. So screen out weak callers and keep some lines open for better callers. So if you don't understand a caller, nobody else is going to either. Get rid of them as soon as you can. Get your callers relaxed and talking, but don't promise them that they're going to go on air. You must respond by saying, thanks so much for the call. Thanks for the conversation. We could call you back in about 5 minutes' time. They'll be like, oh, great, thank you. Build a database of sources that you can use for the opposing opinions that you might want to air. Remember, you can't really say a lot, saying, well, you think you can say a lot on radio, but you can't. Let your guests and let your listeners say it for you, right? Build a database of great callers. Be sure to give guests specific instructions of how to get to the studio and phone contact information. This is going to segue obviously into our next lesson. Guests should email background material ahead of time so that we can prep properly, right? For context and perspective, as I said. Make sure guests know that the host will take care of any promotion needed. Develop a good relationship with your news department, right? Because they will source you a number of great opportunities, right, to include in your show. If something major occurs, don't be afraid to cancel a guest. Just reschedule with them, right? Because priority obviously is priority. So a radio's greatest asset is immediacy. Okay, caller criteria from page 177. Can he or she offer an interesting personal experience pertaining to the topic? Two, do you or the audience care about this person? Does this person sound like a distinctive character? So can you visualize them? Do they have a certain type of tone, certain characteristics, idiosyncrasies? Is he or she a good storyteller? Does he or she have a sense of humor? Does this caller have a strong, passionate opinion on the subject? Passionate and valuable. Is this a person you would find fascinating or enjoy talking to off air? Can this caller take the audience on a journey they cannot get there or get to that point, the listener, on their own? They need this person. Does he or she have something interesting or of value to say? Can he or she offer new information about a story or subject or add specific knowledge to special expertise. So once again, finding out that they are a professional fitness instructor or a cardiothoracic surgeon, then utilize them. Is he or she entertaining? There's the summary of the lesson. I'm going to stop that over there. Hope you learned something. I'll see you in the next one.